So, figurative language is when we use words or phrases, but what we mean isn't their literal definition. So, for example, a metaphor is a figure of speech where we compare something to another and we say it is that other thing. So, time is a thief. We're not actually saying that time is a robber person, but we are comparing them, and so you need to be able to infer the meaning that we are, using with our figurative language. So, irony, a rhetorical device where the intended meaning is opposite or contrasted to the literal meaning, such as a fire station burns down, which is quite ironic. An oxymoron is a figure of speech that combines contradictory terms to create a new meaning. For example, deafening silence. So we know that that silence can't be deafening because it's silent. However, we've created a new semantic meaning where we can understand that what is being described here is an overwhelming silence. Similarly, a figure of speech that compares two different things using like or as. So different to a metaphor where we describe something as something else or describe it to be that other thing. Here we're just using like or as. So her smile was as bright as the sun. Hyperbole and exaggeration. So I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Personification. Human qualities are attributed to animals, inanimate objects, or abstract concepts. So this is a little bit complicated, personification and animation, but personification has the word person in it. It's when innately human attributes or activities are ascribed to an animal or something else. So the wind whispered through the trees. Animals don't whisper, that's an innately human thing. Whereas howling is much more of an animal or wolf thing. So animation is a form of personification, but here we've got inanimate objects being ascribed animal-like or just lifelike attributes or verbs. So the wind howled at the moon is going to be animation because howling is an animalistic verb. Puns, a form of wordplay that exploit multiple meanings or similar sounding words. So pretty much like the linguist joke. I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make enough dough, making use of the fact that dough has multiple meanings. And lexical ambiguity is when we can't know what is actually being said from the words alone. So we need context. The chicken is ready to eat. Am I eating the chicken, or is the chicken ready to eat something else? We can't tell unless we've got the context. So I used the acronym LIPAMAS in high school: lexical ambiguity, irony, personification, pun, onomatopoeia, metaphor, animation, simile. I think it misses oxymoron, simile, it misses hyperbole. So keep that in mind. But I think it's got everything else. Yeah. All right, lexical sense relations. So lexical meaning of words, and then relations is the real way that I remember what these are, because it's about the relationships between words and their meaning. So, for example, synonymy, that's referring to the relationship between words that have similar meanings. So, meaning being semantics, hence why it falls under semantics in the study design. But there's multiple different lexemes, so that's why it's called lexical sense relations. So it's a bit confusing. But remember that with relations, we're talking about relationships between words and their meanings. So happy and joyful are two separate lexemes, but they have very similar semantic meanings. Same with fast and quick, begin and commence. They are synonyms, they have similar semantics, but they're different lexemes. Antonymy, the relationship between words that have opposite meanings. So hot and cold, two lexemes that have opposite semantic meaning. Hyponymy and hypernymy are a little bit difficult. I like to think of it as almost a tree diagram where hypernyms are at the top, and then everything that falls under an umbrella category are going to be your hyponyms underneath. So think of hypo meaning low, for example, hypothermia meaning very cold. Hyponyms are going to fall under hypernyms. So The hyponym is a specific term that falls under the umbrella category, and the hypernym is the umbrella category. So, for example, rose and dandelion and daffodil are all hyponyms that fall under the hypernym flower. Poodle, German Shepherd, I'm not very good with dogs, and beagle are hyponyms that fall under the hypernym dog. Carrot, leek, cabbage are hyponyms that fall under the hypernym vegetable. This one is difficult and not very well taught, I've found. So just consider how one in a text, when the writer is authoring your AC text, for example, why they might use different hyponyms under the same hypernym. So it links quite well to lexical cohesion. By using different hyponyms, it avoids repetition, but it links back to one key idea. And hypernyms are quite similar if you think about them as semantic field or domain. They're quite similar. So often, for example, hypernym, the hyponym, plain, joystick. Actually, no, I take that back. Anyway, but think of it as hypernyms being the overarching idea, and the hyponyms are words that fall under them. Idiom, a phrase or expression whose meaning cannot be understood from the literal meaning. So, for example, kick the bucket. The literal denotation of that would be literally kicking, someone physically kicking a bucket, but we know that it means to die. Bite the bullet, you're not physically eating a bullet, and you're not breaking frozen water with a pickaxe. Those are all idioms for something else. So consider the participants in your conversation. Are they able to understand from the context? Are they able to know what these idioms are? Is that a cultural thing? What if this is someone learning English for the first time? Will they be able to understand it? Does this lead to misunderstandings? Think about the context every time you try to analyze any sort of semantic metalanguage feature. Denotation and connotation, I've got some more examples there for you, but we've discussed that already. And then finally, euphemism and dysphemism. So denotation and connotation are quite important here, connotation in particular, because the whole reason why we would use euphemisms and dysphemisms is to change the connotation or the feelings that are brought to the surface when we say certain words. So, euphemisms are mild expressions used to replace harsh or unpleasant ones. So, they're used to soften the impact of language, such as using passed away instead of died or let go instead of fired. Think about the connotations that died and fired have. They are very negative, they bring on a lot of emotion, and passed away and let go are almost blunted versions of those. Dysphemisms, however, are the opposite. So this is when, often for humor or to express contempt, we use shocking, dysphemistic, more negatively connoted language. So for example, illegal immigrants instead of asylum seekers, or shrink instead of psychologist. We're trying to bring about much more negative connotations or negative feelings because we're trying to shock people. Or we're trying to portray things in a certain way that is more negative than the original meaning. So those are some definitions and examples of your semantic metalanguage. I hope that's been helpful, and I will see you in the next one for discourse. Bye.